we'll listen to your comments also. So to begin with, I'll ask Ashu to start with her presentation on radiology in COVID-19.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you. Just give me a moment to share my screen. Is the audio good?
Yeah, you're okay, Ashu. Your screen's visible. Yeah.
So, Dr. Guleria, sir, brought out several valid points about the current wave, but the radiology images that I'm going to share with you today are primarily from the initial waves, because we have not started, getting those many patients of COVID-19 pneumonia as yet. But just to highlight a few things that sir said that, if we would need to differentiate that, is it because of the underlying pathology worsening or is it really COVID? I will bring out those aspects as we go along and see some images. So in imaging of COVID-19 pneumonia, we'll discuss this in two subsets. One is that patients who are suspects and patients who have already RT-PCR or equivalent microbiology proven. The role may be
full screen, Ashu, please.
Sorry?
Can you go into the presentation mode for your?
I am in the presentation mode. Maybe on my screen.
Yeah, Ashu, here it's not full screen. It's
yeah, sir. So I'll tell you what. I'll just stop share and do whole screen share and try. Sometimes that changes it. Okay, let me just give me a moment. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah. Now it's a whole screen. So most of the issues that sir brought out about over investigation in context of imaging in the last few waves was in context of patients coming with SARI and who were COVID suspects. So let's just go in and see all of these aspects. So first, the role of chest radiograph in both these patients. Chest radiograph, according to me, is our best screening and follow-up tool in diagnosis and management of patients suspected of COVID-19 pneumonia. And with the CT thrown in between in some patients and in specific case situations. Otherwise, for day-to-day monitoring and for doing the initial screening, chest radiograph, just like other chest pathologies, remains your best friend, because we will primarily be working in the emergency rooms, wards and ICUs, wherein everywhere we have placed, and I'm sure similarly other hospitals have placed portable X-ray units. Hence, this remains our point of care modality. From our point of view, it's a much easier system to sanitize, clean than a fixed X-ray system. A fixed X-ray, and particularly a CT system with a gantry, has its own challenges of sanitizing. That's why portable radiography units became very popular during the last few waves and were used extensively. So now we come to use of chest radiograph for diagnosis. That did we really use it for diagnosis? So if there was a SARI patient who clearly had a shortness of breath or had a raised respiratory rate, had hypoxia, or was an immunocompromised host, was the situation in which we performed a chest radiograph and in which it is advocated. In patients with only upper respiratory symptoms, we did not perform chest radiograph and it was not advocated. And as a diagnostic modality, when I come to CT also, I will repeatedly say you are aware that a normal imaging does not at any point exclude COVID-19 pneumonia. Having said that, what's the use of doing a chest radiograph? Can it really tell you whether it's COVID at all? Or so when you do a chest X-ray, at the end you can put it into these 3-4 categories. You can of course say it's normal. You can also clearly, in many instances, say that it's abnormal, but it is not COVID. Yeah, so both of these situations are relatively black and white, wherein there are several situations which is not COVID. We'll be seeing examples of these. And then you are left with this group in between where you either have a classical COVID-19 pneumonia or you have an indeterminate, you're not sure. But these two groups are clear cut. So those are the ones we are screening out initially, that, the symptoms occurring due to some other cause. So let's look at something which we would at that point have labeled as a classical pattern. which was the peripheral consolidations oblique ground glass opacities. Now, suppose you were to see this chest radiograph at a time point where we were not in the pandemic. If we were not in the pandemic and somebody came with shortness of breath and came with this chest radiograph, then what would we call it? In the pre-COVID era, for instance, we would say this is a reverse bat wing pattern, which is reflective of eosinophilic pneumonia. Hence, any diagnostic test that we are using, it predicts the COVID-19 pneumonia when the probability or the prevalence of the disease is high in the community. So at that time point, this was the most classical pattern which emerged, which was this reverse bat wing. It simulated eosinophilic pneumonia, means peripherally placed ground glass and consolidation to differentiate it from fluid overload. And if you see, there is no pleural effusion in this classical pattern. At that time, we collected our data from hundreds of our RT-PCR or microbiology proven patients and found that apart from this peripheral pattern, the other patterns which were encountered were lower lobe consolidation and ground glass. So this one can really simulate fluid overload. But again, if you see, we did not have pleural effusion. Similarly, you can have multifocal areas of consolidation and ground glass. And what would this resemble? This would resemble other organisms such as atypical viral infections. So this will say that it's an infection, but doesn't clearly say that it is COVID. Then there is a pattern which can, here and when you start to reach, you're not sure. This can be fluid overload also, but this is like, again, a ground glass pattern, some septal thickening. Another one which we called a ball pattern was an area of round atelectasis in the upper lobe also had a fairly high specificity. And this is pattern 6, which is overtly ARDS, which is very difficult to make out from a cardiogenic pulmonary edema. So these were the various patterns that we observed. To reinforce, you can have peripheral ground glass and consolidation. You can have lower lobe dominant, central area dominant, multiple areas, ball-like areas, and some uncommon patterns. And the last one is the ARDS pattern. Now, suppose you want to go through these patterns and revise these images again. They are published in the IJMR journal, and this entire interpretation of chest radiograph has been discussed in the special issue, which was taken out by the Academy. Now, let us look at somebody coming with SARI, but you can say confidently that this does not look like COVID. So herein somebody comes in with SARI, but I have an area of consolidation, which is mid-zone, left upper and mid-zone, with some areas of breakdown in it. What does it suggest? It suggests a community-acquired pneumonia with the typical bacterial organisms. So this is a non-COVID pattern. So let us look at some other non-COVID patterns. This, you're all aware, will go as a classical active tuberculosis pattern because it was showing you, apart from areas of consolidation, multiple airspace nodules. It's showing you a cavity with a large air fluid level. So this will go as a classical tuberculosis pattern. A predominantly pleural effusion, which is bilateral. So there is peribronchial consolidation, but bilateral pleural effusion is an important component of it. Again, points to this being a fluid overload rather than it being a COVID-19 pneumonia. A patient with SARI with enlarged mediastinum, hilum, so mediastinal adenopathy, right hilar adenopathy. So again, tuberculosis versus lymphoma, those kind of differentials. So a chest radiograph is immensely useful in the situations where I described in weeding out normal and in weeding out non-COVID. And this is the article which I was referring to, in which all this concept is discussed, and it's obviously open access. Now we come to patients who have already proven to have COVID-19 pneumonia and are admitted in the hospital, then or are in home care. When will we do? See, if they have moderate to severe symptoms at the baseline, we would do a chest radiograph at the outset, and the further frequency depending on how the clinical situation progresses. But in mild cases, doing any imaging is not indicated. Only if patients have other risk factors for developing severe disease, and on clinical monitoring, if you feel that you need to do a chest radiograph, you can do one at the outset. But in routine mild cases, there is no need for doing a chest radiograph. So this is how, although there was a lot of emphasis on CT scans, but through that entire time, as I told you, that serial chest radiographs, because they are so easily available at the bedside, are so useful for monitoring the patient and day-to-day situation where there is a new area developing, or, if patient developed a superadded bacterial infection, etc. We use the chest X-ray as our main tool for inpatients also. Now we come to CT scans. Again, we will discuss both contexts, that in diagnosis and management. Today, we are not doing post-COVID, so we'll not discuss follow-up. The other question is that when you order a CT scan, should you order a non-contrast oblique HRCT, or should you order a CCT, means contrast enhanced, or should you order a pulmonary angiography? So, that decision also has to be taken on basis of clinical plus chest radiograph, that which of the CT scans do I really want. Now, coming to indications for diagnosis, if a patient has severe acute respiratory infection and RT-PCR is negative, on chest radiograph, your pattern is indeterminate, you're not sure what it is. So equivocal chest pattern, chest radiograph pattern, you can go for a CT scan in terms of diagnosis. Otherwise, there is no indication for doing CT scan for diagnosis. Only in this specific situation where you are stuck in a clinical and microbiology discordance, and you have a patient who has severe acute respiratory infection, is significantly symptomatic in terms of the lower respiratory tract. Did we do any kind of, did we ever use CT scans for diagnosing COVID? We did for a few types of specific surgeries, like suppose the patient had to undergo a FES. So there were some surgeons who would feel that in addition to a negative RT-PCR, they would like to look at the chest CT to be sure that there's no COVID-19 pneumonia. So for some high aerosol generating surgeries, you may do it in addition to the RT-PCR, even if it is negative, to be doubly sure. Now, to the proven cases who are on home isolations, indication for CT are similar to seek immediate medical attention. So actually, they are very similar to what I said for chest radiograph. So on the chest radiograph, if you're not sure what's going on, you can use a CT scan. In proven hospitalized patients, as I showed you, we are doing bedside chest radiographs. They are very useful. And then, in unexplained deterioration, any disparity in clinical and radiographic findings, every patient of suspected pulmonary embolism and patients of suspected complications. So these are the moderate to severe patients with deterioration or suspected embolism that we took them down for CT scans. So these are two useful, one is an article, one is a guideline paper, which are useful for when to do CT scan, besides what I will be covering, that how to interpret the CT scan. So, everybody is familiar with the terminology CORADS, and it was used a lot for during the last wave. Basically, any, radiology reporting system which is being used like a diagnosis, just like I said in chest radiograph, it's used for saying that one end of spectrum normal or non-infectious and one end is typical. So if it's like very classical, it goes into 5 and everything else is in between that you don't know what it is. So if we look at this is a CT scan. We do a topogram which looks similar to a chest radiograph in the beginning, which shows you the classical pattern that we saw earlier, peripheral ground glass. So on the first radiograph itself, you would think, yes, I could be dealing with COVID-19 pneumonia. And then when you do the CT scan and you find this peripherally distributed ground glass and consolidations, this is was very typical for COVID-19 pneumonia. Again, to reinforce that not that we were not seeing these patterns in the pre-COVID era, but in when the prevalence of the disease is low, these patterns had a different clinical connotation. So the interpretation as to the cause was different because it would be another atypical pneumonia or an acute exacerbation of a pre-existing ILD. But in context of COVID, this was the most classical pattern which emerged. As this pattern heals, it gives, the ground glass tends to go and you tend to get more of these linear subpleural areas. This is what is the organizing pneumonia, which comes in the subacute phase about a couple of weeks into the disease. As we saw that in chest radiograph, not every patient will have the classical pattern. So multifocal ground glass is a common pattern which is observed in other viral pneumonias also. So that was also seen during the COVID-19 pneumonia. While the classical is lower lobe dominant, you can have a crazy paving pattern in upper lobes also. Organizing pneumonia pattern. So apart from shortness of breath, another indication, which was subsequently brought in to perform imaging and CT scan was persistent fever. We had a subset of patients who after say 10 days also the high grade fever was not resolving, even if they did not have hypoxia and shortness of breath. So that was another subset in which we performed CT scans because we needed to differentiate, particularly if steroids had been used, that whether this was COVID-19 pneumonia or whether it was a superadded infection. For instance, in this case, it was a COVID-19 pneumonia, and subsequently I will show you a case of superadded infection. So that is why we labeled as CORAD 6 that this is consistent with COVID-19 pneumonia with no superinfection. Again, to reinforce that a normal CT scan does not exclude COVID-19 pneumonia, and it can have a COVID-19 infection. It can have, even in that ways, up to a 30% false negative rate. And if you do it like very early in the disease, and for instance, with the current variant wherein the symptoms are upper respiratory, the likelihood of it being normal and hence false negative further goes up. So to summarize, what is CORADS 1 is that it is looking normal or it has some findings which are not COVID related. This one is infective, but it looks more like it can be tuberculosis. 3 onwards, then into 4, into 5, the likelihood of it being COVID-19 pneumonia keeps going up, and CORADS 5 score has the highest probability where you get classical patterns which are consistent with COVID-19 pneumonia. Now, complications, just very briefly, we will see. So in complications, bacterial infection. So this was a child who was post HSCT, post BMT, and had developed COVID-19 pneumonia and continued to have fever. And as I told you, for persistent fever, we did. And every time the chest radiograph showed that there was an upper lobe consolidation, which is not going away. When we did the CT scan, we realized that there was an abscess which had formed here, while the lower lobes were showing changes of post-COVID changes. The upper lobe had developed a secondary, bacterial infection, which had gone into an abscess formation. So this is how we saw a previous patient with persistent fever, but which was due to COVID pneumonia itself, and this one due to secondary bacterial infection. So in such situations, it's very useful. Clinically suspected pulmonary embolism needs to go in for a CT pulmonary angiography. Unlike all previous situations where we were doing non-contrast CT, HRCT is a non-contrast CT. So no intravenous contrast is given. But if clinically there's any suspicion of pulmonary embolism, we need to do a CTPA. See what happens when pulmonary infarctions develop, like this patient has a filling defect which shows a thrombus and also has infarction. Suppose we were to do an HRCT and only see this, we would say this is a classic COVID pneumonia pattern, or we would say, they could be superadded bacterial infection, but we would completely miss out the pulmonary embolism or thrombus. So that is why that call has to be taken prior to CT in conjunction with the treating physician, that what are we exactly doing the CT for, so that we can plan it accordingly. A lot of peripheral vasculopathy during active and subacute phases of COVID pneumonia is described, but for this, a CTPA is not indicated. We just these are reconstructions we have produced from patients who underwent a CTPA for suspected pulmonary embolism. And it ended up showing that there's no pulmonary embolism, but there is a lot of peripheral pulmonary artery involvement. Hemoptysis is another symptom which does not happen in context of COVID-19. What we found is our patients with significant hemoptysis, that is to say, mostly had a pre-existing or a coexisting condition. Like in this patient, there was a pre-existing tuberculosis with reactivation had happened, and there was a small pseudoaneurysm which had formed. And then in our trauma center DSA, which was a COVID facility at the time, we went and performed a pulmonary angiogram and coiled the pseudoaneurysm. So this hemoptysis in the COVID-19 pneumonia patient was not related to COVID-19 pneumonia, but because patient had coexisting tuberculosis. Then post-COVID changes, mostly, we follow up clinically or on chest radiograph. Or on CT. So we are not discussing this today, but similar to what the COVID pneumonia gives, like it will give you a lot of different patterns. CT severity scoring is the other thing that basically the CT severity scoring, there were 2-3 main scoring systems which are adopted, with the maximum scores being either 25 or 50, just to basically understand that, it is dependent on percentage of the lung involved. So if you had a score of more than 18 by 25, it reflected severe disease, and a patient had higher risk for mortality, and less than 7 was taken as mild. And similarly, there was a 40-point scoring system which we followed, and this 19.5 was taken as the cutoff. So for instance, this is a patient who underwent a CT with us. You can see the peripheral ground glass and consolidation. If we were to score it, we would, beside giving a description, we used to give a description, say whether there is, any superadded complication or not, then give a lobe-wise score, and then give a CORAD score, and then give what the CTSS or the severity score was. So similarly, the patient we saw earlier, this patient had a score of 15 by 25, and on day 11, patient eventually went on to HFNC and was maintaining a SpO2 at that time point of 92%. So that way, the scoring system basically reflects only extent, and it gives you a means of, when objectivity, if you undergo serial images. So it gives you, like, if the score fell from 15 to 11, but there will be a lot of disparity many times between CT scores and clinical correlation because of, patient factors, if we are missing any significant vascular disease, or whether, these lesions which are there, they are just ground glass or they are very dense consolidation. So based on CT morphology also, we are able to prognosticate the outcome. So just to emphasize in the summary, chest radiograph and CT is to be used in very select situations, as we have emphasized, such as clear-cut are the shortness of breath and hypoxia. Persistent fever was one of them. RT-PCR negative, some people used it saying at that time point in the beginning that it's not available, but I think that situation does not exist anymore. Some microbiology is available everywhere, so this is not a reason to do it. So persistent fever, shortness of breath, discordance between clinical and microbiology, and high-risk situation. It is not a routine investigation, as already emphasized by Sir, but once it is done, it's not that it's not useful. It can give a lot of information. And ultrasound has very niche indication in COVID ICUs and ward, and is also a tool that we used extensively during the previous waves. Thank you very much.